everybody. It's me, Eric Mitchell, the host of To The Point. It is Friday, the last Friday in May, and today's already started off like the longest day of the longest year inside of a year that's extremely longer than a normal year, as we had protests and riots overnight in Minneapolis on day 2. Burned, I think we're at 51 buildings have been burned to the ground, numerous arrests. I don't believe last night we had anyone killed. I know there were several shootings. I spent the evening listening to the scanner. It was mass chaos. Absolutely have zero idea what the National Guard is even doing there. So far, all the photos I've seen is them driving around. They're really good at that. I don't think they're really doing anything. I asked several times on Twitter for somebody to tell me what their mission statement was for this, to assist the law enforcement that was being repeatedly stoned by rocks. But that's what we're going to lead with today. As we led with yesterday, we will be jumping into this. As always, I'm going to be joined by our co-host, Pavlina Asta. We're going to jump into this topic because it's hot and breaking. Before we jump into this, I'd like to share that breaking news right before we went on the air. The AP reported that the police officer filmed kneeling on George Floyd's neck has been arrested. We do not have the charges yet brought forth, but we do know that he was taken into custody this morning or early this afternoon, their time. So he's in custody. I believe this is a good thing. I hope that this quells some rioting so we can get excited about SpaceX tomorrow. Really, I mean, isn't that what we all want? We need some positivity in our life and not negativity, but he was arrested. Now, it remains to be seen if the other 3 officers will be charged, believing that they're all 3 there, like we heard from our retired NYPD detective, John Salerno, yesterday. He did share that all 4 are responsible for this. No one bothered to stop what is an illegal technique in law enforcement. This is a tough case for us all to swallow. It's causing racial divide amongst social media in the biggest way that I've ever seen growing up 44 years on this planet. Never seen such a divided nation. And speaking of that, our guest today is going to talk about that. He worked for probably what we've all considered, I think both parties consider, one of the greatest presidents of our time, which was President Reagan. I'm a huge fan as a kid of the 80s. It's great to see these upcoming generations also recognize President Reagan. So our guest today, and when our next guest is able to join us, you will, but our first guest today will be James Rosenbush. And we'll get to James here in a moment, but first let's bring Pavlina in, and we're going to talk about what's going on today in the crazy world we live in. It's so fancy bringing you in that way with like things dropping. Look at you with Central Park behind you. I'm envious.
I mean, Queen of New York. I have to have New York behind me. So
I love it.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
I'm good, Eric. How are you doing?
We went a week without seeing each other, so I was like,
it was sad. I missed you that week. It was a lot of fun.
It was, but we had to take it off for Memorial Day. We have to recognize our fallen, and it was good to refresh. I actually went to a restaurant and sat down in it.
Oh, did you? Okay, now you're making me jealous. That's cool. That's fine.
I did it twice, and then I did it again yesterday. Oh, yeah.
Wow. Okay, well, here in New York, I can barely go outside without getting, looked at cross-eyed if I don't have a mask on. So, I'm jealous.
Oh, yeah.
Did you have to wear a mask in the restaurant?
No, we didn't. We were shocked that we didn't, but we did not. So it was.
Were you inside, outside?
We were inside. A good buddy of mine owns. I'm trying to make sure I'm squared away here. Boom! Look at me. I'm all moving all over the place here. I apologize. We actually sat inside. A good buddy of mine owns a deli pizzeria, and he's able to. In phase 1 on the Pacific Northwest, phase 1 is opening, and you can open in the afternoon. He couldn't do his lunchtime service. I mean, he's short staffed. He had to furlough almost everybody at the beginning of this. And I was talking to him, and you might like this. So I asked him about the CDC regulations for restaurants.
Yes.
And it's like 52 pages long.
Yeah.
And it's unrealistic. He said for coming back that 2 times during 8 weeks, he made $85. They send him a CDC requirement of 50 some odd pages, and it's completely, unless you're a multi-million-dollar company, you're not going to be able to do this and have employees, putting bank glass up and, treating it like they're going to get robbed at a Sack and Suds in Compton, and it's not. It's, it's as wine country as you can get in Oregon.
Right.
It's just crazy. But it was great to see people out. Nobody's wearing masks. Everybody's like sitting in a restaurant, sipping wine, and basically in complete rebellion to the wearing masks, because as we've seen today, you and I talked about it earlier, we're going to talk about it right now.
Okay,
The WHO said wearing a mask is basically pointless.
Yeah.
So
I hated the mask situation since the beginning. I never understood it. I was just kind of like, okay, like I understand if you're sick. I understand if you're a healthcare worker. I understand if you're working with sick people. I get all that. That all makes sense to me. I'm very like, I enjoy common sense things, and that made sense to me. As a very healthy person who has not had any symptoms or any issues this entire time, and I've been in the epicenter, and I've been around, I guess, people in the sense that like I've been running, I go on my daily runs, I do that kind of thing, but I haven't, been crazy. I'm not going to like bars or anything like that to where I'm like in close quarters with people, and it's just like, why do I have to wear a mask? Like, I don't know. And then it was like the whole thing of, to be courteous to others and protect others from yourself, you wear a mask. And I was like, okay, well, to protect others, I'll wear a mask. But now they're saying it doesn't even matter. And I'm just like, all of those days where I was running, was like suffocating. It was ridiculous, So
yeah.
This is crazy.
I don't understand it, because now I'm seeing they want to make it a national thing for all of us to have to wear them when we go into restaurants. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do it. I mean, it's already weird enough your server and everybody's coming over and they're masked up. And
you can barely understand people. It's all muffled. You're just like, what are you saying? I can't understand you.
I mean, the manager comes over. He's like, how's your meal? And I'm like, are you talking to us? Because he's walking by but being friendly. And right. I'm like, bro, I can't see your lips moving, so I don't know if you're talking to me. It's like you're a ninja.
That's like, hilarious. I know everyone looks like they're about to rob you. It's just like, I don't know what to do anymore. I don't know what this is. And like I said, blind leading the blind. I don't know who to trust anymore. They all seem
funny thing that we're talking about this. I know you work in the same building with the wonderful Mr. Joe Piscopo. And I saw him today. He was coming in and he recorded from studio today. And he, always takes selfies and stuff before he as he comes over from Jersey. And he came out today. He had a mask on and gloves in his suit. And I swear he looked like one of the bank robbers from like Heat or one of those movies. Because I was like, and he had a back on. I'm like, he looks like he's in one of those kind of movies. He's going to shoot somebody. Like,
that's so funny. I love Joe. He is one of the greatest guys. And like, but he's like a little hypochondriac. Like he is notorious for just hating germs and doesn't want to like touch people and like all that stuff. And I totally get it. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And I just think it's so funny. Like when he came in today, I was just like, oh my gosh, hello. Like we are getting better. Like Joe's here, so it was crazy.
So our thermometer of health is Joe Piscopo. I love it. Joe, we love you. And you are now you're our measuring stick if we're getting better is if Joe arrives. I love it. I love that man. He is amazing. Always has great guests on his show. And it's just funny to see him when he takes those pictures. I always laugh because then you have like Frankie, who's like the polar opposite of him, who's just like coming over from Staten Island. I hate being on this bus. These people are miserable. So it's
that is so funny. I love Frank too. They're and Al, even Al, like they're all just a bunch of great guys, but they're hilarious. So. Yeah. I mean,
but you live in New York City, where I was listening to Governor Cuomo. He wants to make it an order that you all have to wear masks everywhere you go.
Yeah, well, I can't even go into a Duane Reade, which for anyone that doesn't have a Duane Reade, it's like a CVS, a Walgreens kind of situation. I've realized that not everyone has those, so I should explain. But
except for those of us who go to New York all the time, we're like, oh yeah, I feel that pain.
Yeah, you like know, but like you can't go into anywhere without a mask on. Like there's cops or there's like a security person at the front. There's usually only one entrance, so you can't get in anywhere else, But there's usually a security guard at the Duane Reade I always go to. There's like two of them, and I'm like, okay, making sure that you have a mask on. And I remember I was actually the other day I went to a Duane Reade, and I was like walking up to the door, and I had it to where like my nose was out of the masks just so I could like breathe, and like no biggie, but like a little thing. And he like motioned. He's like, you need to put it all the way up. And I was like, okay, yes, so sorry. I was like, it's fine. It's only like 80 degrees here. Like I'm not suffocating or anything. It's fine. But yeah, it's a big deal. Like you can't get into anywhere without a mask on. I don't even know. okay, can you explain to me how I'm supposed to go to a restaurant and like keep a mask on and eat? Like what, how does that work?
I asked that question yesterday. We drove by a coffee house, and
Yes.
people were sitting outside with coffee in front of them, and they had masks on. And I'm like, so you're saying you got to do the
Exactly. Yes.
what world is this? I'm not doing that. No, if you're sick, stay home. That's just my.
I mean, okay, and I have said this from the beginning. I think that if you are vulnerable, if you know, are anywhere near like getting sick and it could be problematic, right? Stay home, take care of yourself, make sure you're okay, make sure whatever. The rest of us need to like get on with our lives and we need to reopen our economy because we're like dying out here. Like it's not okay. Like for someone like me, like thankfully I have been able to be working this whole time and like, you know, working in media. It's never ending and like that's where, you know, people go right now. But a lot of, you know, my friends haven't been working and it's like they are able bodies. They can help contribute to our economy right now. They could be making money right now. Like it doesn't make any sense for them to be staying home because they're perfectly fine and like they don't have any issue. It's just like it's frustrating. So I just want to see this moving along. I'm glad for you guys. You're at least able to go to restaurants and things seem to be lightening up.
We're in phase 1 as of Monday. I get to go see my barber, so I'm like,
I'm just really rubbing it in today. Okay.
10 a.m. 10 a.m. I'm in the barber chair. I am so excited. I'm like,
I have a whole list of things I am going to do when we like get back to, you know, normal. And I refuse to call this is like the new normal. I refuse to say that. So what my normal, the old way, right? I have a whole list of things I want to get done. So I can't wait to have that happen.
I mean, it's weird. I will tell you, sitting in a restaurant, it felt like a weird experience because you're sitting there.
At all? Like, were you like, did it feel like illegal in any way? Because
it did. It felt illegal because we have one of the worst governors in the world here, Governor Kate Brown. And she said, Friday came around, she's like, myself and the 26 mayors of cities throughout Oregon, we would like you to stay in your county. Don't go visit other counties. And I'm like, okay, sorry, this is America. I'm going to go where I want to go. I want to go visit my boys' restaurant. I want to sit down and just enjoy life. But we did run into some, like, I call them the Gestapo because there's people, the masked Gestapo. The folks that walk around and they look at you like they just have this look when you're not wearing a mask where they judge you and you can almost see the frown through the mask. Thank God you can't. But they go around you, like they go extra around you. Like,
oh, Eric, it's all in the eyes. Okay, so those people that you're talking about are all over New York, first of all, and they live in my apartment building. They like give you this eye, and they're just like, it's like this evil eye. Like, are you kidding me right now? Like, you are literally, like, I don't know, like the worst thing in the world right now. Like, you are a sin. And I was just like, okay, well, that's cool. I'm just gonna go for a run, like real quick. Don't worry, my mask is in my pocket. Like, it's fine. I'll put it on like if I actually get close to someone, but like whatever. Yeah, they're all over New York. If you don't wear a mask, it's like it's the worst.
I've turned it into a comedy game. If they want me to wear a mask, I wear like a burqa like we had overseas, and I wear it across. It's scary looking, and then I told my son I'm just gonna go full ninja with it, so I look like I could be a terrorist. I'm just gonna go full terrorist. I don't care. You want me to be masked up? I'll go over the top. My son wants a World War I gas mask. He's like,
no, that's kind of cool. Make it fashion.
I was like, bring it in.
Fashion. I'm into that. Like that'd be kind of cool. I don't know. I think everyone already looks like they're about to rob a bank, so it can't get much worse than this.
I mean, you know what's funny is I was watching the riots. That's funny that I just said in a sentence I was watching the riots, and I'm sitting there on my couch.
Right.
The first thing I noticed, and I tweeted it, no one's keeping social distance nor wearing a mask.
No, that's the first thing I noticed too. I was just like, oh, we like forgot.
It's the world we live in. That's the first thing we noticed.
I think it's amazing that, like, one, the protests and the riots are, important in a certain, like, because the whole country is angry about this, right? And rightfully so. But I think, like, everyone just kind of, like, forgot we're, like, sort of in, like, this pandemic that we're sort of dealing with. Like, did anyone else forget about that? Was that just me? Like, what just happened? Because there were riots right outside my apartment here in New York City for George Floyd, and it was insane. It was massive. They were throwing garbage in the streets and like all this stuff. No one was social distancing, and rarely anyone was wearing a mask. So I don't know. I think they just all kind of forgot. I'm not really sure what happened.
we'll table this topic because I do want to jump into it, and it looks like we have some time after our guest when we bring on Mr. Rosenbush here in a moment. But one of the funny things is just the behavior I've noticed, and I'd like to talk to you because we have a little age gap between the two of us, and our two generations. I mean, we're both very socially active people. We're out, we're tech savvy. We get everything. And I just, I'd love to deep dive into your thoughts. I mean, we've kind of had Ferguson and some other cities in the last 5 years that riots have popped up. Now, Ferguson, people can argue that case all the way long, but this one seems to be the first kind of riot where we're all unified, but we're all kind of like, dude, don't burn buildings. We have your support. But then you see Antifa. And again, there's a group that always seems to pop its little head up like a little troll, like a whack-a-mole. They pop their little... I know you've been accused of looking like a member of them before. Our trolls have said...
That was ridiculous. I'm not the furthest thing from Antifa. Thank you so much. I just I was making Times Square look like a zombie apocalypse just happened, and I was the lone survivor. That's what I was going for, guys. It's fashion. You're
that dripping in Gucci freaking Antifa member. You're just like...
I mean, I'm classy.
Classy. That's what I am. Savage. Oh, wait a minute. Wrong. This is not TikTok. Damn it. I screwed that up again. I keep doing that. It's not TikTok. Stop TikToking. Automatically, you hear those two words go together. No, but we'll get into that subject. But we will. It is time. We could do it. We will be going to our first guest. I am actually really excited. Just being a kid of the '80s and growing up with President Reagan in office, and just so much that went on for those 8 years. Coming out of the late 70s, which was just a mess with Richard Nixon and Ford and Jimmy Carter, the oldest human being on the world that has more lives than a cat. That dude's fallen off roofs. He was a horrible president, when people talk about bad presidents, I know they want to list so many other people. I'm like, man, Jimmy Carter should lead that list. But I remember when Reagan came into office, and it was just something about him. So I was so excited that we had the opportunity to bring on this guest because, number one, talking about my personal favorite president that I got to meet when I keep aging myself, but I was really young when I met him, and I got to meet, George Bush, so meeting what would become two presidents, back-to-back presidents, which I don't believe that's ever happened. I believe that's the last time a vice president's been elected. After that, I can't think of another. Biden, no. Gore, no. Nope. Nope. I was just thinking out loud as we did that one. I'm like, no vice. He's the last vice president. I believe he's also the last vice president ever to actually have served our country in an honorable. I mean, not saying the other ones haven't served on, but actually a combat veteran, not hey, I joined the Air National Guard. I won't go anywhere, but hey, I put the uniform on. Not making fun of the Air National Guard. I don't need you guys hating on me. I'm not hating. I'm just saying, I got to do this now, Pavlina. They get mad. They send me hate mail. They're like, hey, Eric was being mean.
I feel like you stand up for all veterans and you love them all so much. I feel like anything else is it's for fun. You know what I mean? There's no harm.
It's sarcasm.
I'm
funny.
I love sarcasm. I'm the queen of it, but people don't always get it, Eric,
Oh, I got it on Twitter the other day. You'll love this. Before we bring James on, I got to tell you this because we're just talking about it. So I was responding to someone on Twitter.
Yes.
Just responding.
Dangerous thing to do.
Just responding and disagreeing with them, but I was polite about it.
Yes.
They sent me a text, but why are you bullying me? I'm not bullying you. I'm just disagreeing with you. I don't agree with your opinion. I'm not allowed to do that. We're friends. I'm like, it's Twitter.
You're not allowed to disagree with people. You're not allowed to have your own opinions most of the time, and you're not really allowed to voice them. And if you don't agree with people, then you are the enemy. So that's usually the way people think of things. So.
Automatically, you're a traitor. You know how many times I've been called a traitor? But my favorite one that I always get told to do, and I don't know why people tell me this. They tell me to go to the recruiting office. And I know, producer Chris and I, we have this ongoing laugh attack about why do people keep telling me to go to the recruiting office? I'm like, do I need to bring them something? Because I've already been to a recruiting office. I signed on the dotted lines, raised my right hand. I did all that. Why am I going back? I don't want to go back.
Wait, do they give you a reason, or is it just
they want me to go join the military because I shouldn't be complaining. I should go serve my country. And I'm like, thank you that you think I look younger. I'll take that. I'm glad that my boyish young looks mean that you think I should go still enlist. Unfortunately, I'm too old. I can't enlist. I couldn't enlist right now if I wanted to. Now, if there was a reason for me to enlist, I'm sure the Marine Corps would take me back with wide open arms. But I don't want to go do that because I like money and freedom and sleep and all the things the Marine Corps didn't provide. Love you, Marine Corps, but some things you just didn't give me that I really enjoy now and later in life. So,
well, yeah.
So let's transition to something better. No, I'm just kidding. I think let's get to the point with our guest today. I'm so excited. We got giddy kid. So we'll bring him on. We're excited to bring James Rosenbush on. He was former First Lady Nancy Reagan, one of the finest First Ladies ever, her chief of staff. So we're going to talk about the Reagan administration and talk about election 2020 and get his thoughts on what's going on in 2020, which we should nickname the dumpster fire year. I think the Chinese are actually finding a picture of a dumpster fire instead of like a rooster or a pig, and they're officially, this is the year of the dumpster fire. That's 2020.
So perfect.
Right? That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
We're doing it. That's what we did. Somebody's like, oh, Jesus, he brought the Chinese up. That's fine.
No, because it's a normal thing. You know, like it's the year of the dragon or something. And
the year of the dumpster fire. So without further ado, let's welcome our guest today, the Honorable Mr. James Rosenbush. Hello, James. Welcome to our show.
Hey, great to be with you.
How are you doing?
Well, I'm doing fine. I don't know about the world, though. Let's just say it's a news-rich era that we live in, right? Every day brings something new, but I do think that there's a broad awareness now of the impact that China's had on our culture and our economy. Actually, not just ours, but the world. So I think I call it the Great Awakening in terms of our geopolitical experience. So I think that's a good thing. Certainly what's happening in Minneapolis and other cities is not, except that the more we expose this injustice and the more we recognize the changes that have to occur. I think, I'm like Reagan. So Reagan was the eternal optimist, right? So everything he looked at as a problem and a challenge was just a way to improve our perception of this great country and how the pillars of our democracy. So the very fact that we are talking about these things and trying to get better are features of the fact that we have the freest, most open, fairest economy and government in the world, and the best system of government that the world has ever known. So it's a constant churning to get better and better.
Outstanding. So let me ask you. So obviously you served under the two finest individuals that we probably put in the White House ever, with the First Lady, Nancy Reagan, and obviously President Reagan. You went through an assassination attempt that we're all familiar with and all the craziness of the war on drugs. Did you ever think that you would see a year like 2020? If you think back to all the crises that you guys had to go through in your administration, the attack on Tripoli that killed those sailors, that was probably the moment I remember as a kid. I think that's like my defining moment of why I absolutely joined the military, was remembering President Reagan addressing the nation and just absolutely looking in the camera like, dude, Gaddafi, you messed up. You killed a couple Americans. You don't do that. I'm taking you back to, the Stone Age. I remember that moment. I have chills just thinking about it because it's the first time I saw a president really get pissed off that Americans died. And now you look at 2020. So I'd love your thoughts as you were part of this whole process, this amazing administration, and during a different time in our country, and you had your own turmoils. But did you ever think that you would see the dumpster fire that is 2020?
Well, don't forget the Challenger accident as well, which is a great tragedy. But today, I have to say, Eric, that today there's an edge and a cut that is much more aggrieved. It's much more harsh, and I think part of that is the fact that language and the way we deal with one another and social media platforms have enabled the way we deal with problems to be prosecuted in a way that is full frontal, is what I call it. So during Reagan time, you had a president who was a person who he would speak in unifying tones. He had a love for the American people, as does Trump. He had a great love for the American people, and as a result, they loved him back. He's in the top 5 of all U.S. presidents in American history. No question. I wrote an article not too long ago for the Wall Street Journal. We had protests too. So history, Eric, seems to be a fleeting thing. We tend to very quickly forget what just happened in the last presidency or in the last decade. So we had protests. I have to tell you, wherever we went, we had groups that were licensed to throw bottles of blood on us. We had chants that if you were up in the family course, you go over the North Portico of the White House, you see 24/7 protesters were chanting. You don't see this today, and yet you see eruptions and of disruptions. It's a very disruptive time. Obviously, and I think the disruptions have a more of a cutting edge about them. I agree with you.
Awesome.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you. And it does feel like a dumpster fire year just because of everything that's going on in the beginning of the year, but now especially with this coronavirus. And we've never dealt with anything like this. And I don't think any of us really saw this kind of thing coming, or like what it would become, So how do you think President Trump has handled it, and do you think Reagan would approve?
Well, first of all, you have to remember that Reagan believed in the 11 commandments, and he said the 11th commandment is never speak ill of thy fellow Republican. So he always stood by that. Reagan had no ego. This is the most unusual man, and I described this in my last bestseller, which is called True Reagan. And I described his values, his political platform, and his faith as he described it to me, because he was a man he was very conflict averse. He never liked to talk about himself. He had absolutely no ego. He left the White House the same man that came into the White House in the beginning. So at the end of 8 years, he says goodbye to the American people. He's talking about the shining city on a hill, which he believed America was and is. And if that light ever grew dim, the rest of the world will go into chaos. And I think this applies a lot to today. And I think it's critical that we recognize the extreme value and importance of the American system and the American way of life and the values this country was founded on. I was reading a quote today from Alexis de Tocqueville, who came to this country as a French nobleman, and he observed the American system. And he says, when we stop believing in the importance and the value of the American system is when the rest of the world goes dark as well. So these are the kinds of things that Reagan not only believed in, but he communicated. So in a large sense, he was a uniter. And yet today, I would say that the way Trump communicates is largely because he's willing to fight back against the forces that he sees are trying to destroy the American system that Reagan so loved and supported and talked about endlessly. In fact, the media would, they would say, when are you going to stop talking about the great American, the American dream, and all this sort of thing? Well, the American people love that, and they need to hear these things. But today, I think that Trump is a defender of our system, no question, but he's a fighter, and a lot of people like that. They think it's time that someone stood up and fought back and had a message, not to be passive, because the forces on the opposite side that have wanted to deconstruct the American way of life or change it in a certain way or change America, there are people that are very much opposed to that. And Trump is not a voice to press back. And this is what a lot of the American people, this is what happened in the last election, which no one understood. The majority of Americans were looking for a leader who would push back on what they thought were efforts to change America in a way that shouldn't be changed based on our fundamental liberties as protected in the Constitution.
Great insight, James. Before we get going, before we continue, I just want to announce some breaking news to everybody who's tuning in. It just came out of Minneapolis. The police officer that was arrested before we went on air has been formally charged with murder. That's right. He was just charged with murder. Those charges are coming out are pending, but he is going to be charged with murder. I hope this quells the riots. I hate seeing a beautiful city burn. There's no excuse for that kind of rioting. So, James, as we come back, I just want to get that out there to everybody because I'm sure people's phones are starting to buzz with that news. But I want to kind of transition over. You've written an incredible book. I can see it over your shoulder there. So I want to talk about that before you go. So I always like reading good books. And obviously, you have a wealth of knowledge. Obviously, being a chief of staff for First Lady is awesome. All I really know about it, and don't judge me because I know I'm going to name a Democrat when I say this, but they played a Democrat on TV. But I'm talking about watching The West Wing, right? Which, that's the closest I've come to the White House and understanding anything that goes on at all. So I understand how important the job of chief of staff is. I had the honor and privilege of meeting Marine Corps General Kelly when he was the chief of staff at the White House a few years ago. Awesome. Of course, I'll say that about any fellow Marine, but it was great to be around General Kelly. So what is it, number one, let's talk about your book. But before you go, I do want to touch on what it was like being the chief of staff for Nancy Reagan, who is always the face you see when you talk about the war on drugs or anything else. It's always, Nancy's face, who's kind of like America's mom. At least for me growing up. So we'll start your choice. You can start with the book or Nancy. It's your choice.
Oh, we got to start with Reagan. So I had the great honor I was the first person in history to be a commissioned officer for the president and first lady. So I was an assistant to President Reagan. I ran his most favorite domestic policy program called Private Sector Initiatives. And that was a dream for me to have a job like that. It was an extraordinary honor. But because I worked for both the president and the first lady, I traveled the world with them. I had insights. I was working in very close quarters with them, and it was a very unusual job. There were very few jobs just like that in the White House. But you're responsible basically for the life of a president and first lady and all the details associated with that. So when you occupy positions like that, when you're voted into office, you have to make the hard decisions. But the chief of staff has to be right there to brief you, to get everything else done for you, so that you can make those decisions and you can be representing the positions and the platform that you explain to the public all over the world. So when I travel with the Reagans to China or all over Europe or wherever we were traveling, I was, chief of staff is the person who's there. The buck stops with the chief of staff, and you have to make sure everything is organized in terms of issues, policy, media, advance, everything like that. And on the first lady side, we also ran every event that took place, including in history, the greatest number of state visits and bilateral meetings between the president and other heads of state. 48 visits during my time, 1 or 2 per month, which was extraordinary. And that helped, I think, the diplomatic initiatives that Reagan had as well. So this book, which interestingly, in its first week of release, it's only been out for 2 months, became an Amazon #1 bestseller because people are beginning to recognize today, you may have a skill, you may have an extraordinary career, you may have extraordinary accomplishments, or you may be running something, or you may be selling something, but if you do not have the ability to persuade through communication skills, if you do not have the ability to connect with your audience, if you do not have the ability to tell a story, you will not be able to sell your product, run your company, or be a voice forward. So you see a lot of CEOs today, unfortunately, losing value because they can't communicate. Look at the head of Boeing, the former head of Boeing, the former head any General Motors or General Electric, any number of these companies, you get put on the spot by the media, and your share price goes down because you can't communicate. And this book tells you, and I think the reason it's #1 bestseller, it's a handbook, right? So it tells not only all these different points, these are the things, you follow these, and it's guaranteed you're going to be a communications winner. But it also tells stories about people that I've met, great leaders that I have met, and I've asked them about how to be an effective public speaker, and I talk about it. So I was brought up with a dad who taught Dale Carnegie that was trained by a great communicator. I package all of this in this book, and this book is written for you.
Did we lose audio? Anybody hear me?
I'm here. Can you
All
hear me?
right, cool.
I think
Now we can.
like just a second, but
All of a sudden it got really quiet. I was like, whoa.
Oh, well, I stopped because I'm ranting on there.
Go, Pavlina.
no, you're good. James, I love this book. I was actually doing some research before the show just because I think it looks so awesome. And I know I talk a lot about millennials and Gen Zs just in general and like things about them. And one of the things like millennials and Gen Zs are known for is how bad they are with face-to-face communication. And what would you tell them would be like the first step to getting better at that, whether it's a professional or even, in a personal sense? Like, what would you tell them?
I get the perfect answer for that because I coach. I'm a coach for salespeople, teachers, CEOs, and I've coached a number of millennial CEOs and also salespeople. And they'll say, we don't have the ability as millennials for some reason. We don't have the ability to connect with other people, and it's causing a loss in not only our personal relationship but our business relationship. So they say to me, what advice do you have for us? It is very simple. Be curious about the other person. And they're like, what? We're just not that way. We're not that interested in other people. And I said, well, you're not going to have a relationship. And you're not going to be able to communicate. And my heart goes out to them because I see a lot of millennials, what I call wandering the world without relationships and the ability to connect. So this is what I would say. When you meet someone, just ask them, hey, tell me your life story. And the other person will go, well, I work for, CBS or, no. Not just where you work today, but where were you born? Oh, well, I was born in Chicago. Oh, what a great city. I've been to Chicago, or I actually, my mother was born in Chicago, or something like that. So you begin to build the platform, or what I call the bridge to the other person. See, so by asking them that curiosity question, you're building a bridge over which they can come back to you, and you can go to them. And so then you begin to say, well, Chicago, what is it really like? You can talk about the winters in Chicago. You can talk about the industry in Chicago. You can say, well, did you go to school in Chicago? It opens the way for you to communicate. That's the simplest, the most direct, and the most effective way for millennials to have a relationship with someone else. And that is to be, you can fake it. If you're not empathetic, if you're not really interested in the other person, but you need to for your job, or you want to find a friend, or you want to have a relationship with someone, be curious. Ask them that question, and I guarantee you that you will start a relationship. If you ask them that one question, tell me your life story.
I love that just because I'm always curious about people. That's why I started in media so early, is just because I wanted to be able to learn more about people. And I think that's so important. And that's something that millennials and Gen Zs really need to learn, just because I think it's all about like me all the time. And it's just like, it's not like, once you show interest in the other person, you can build a rapport and that's everything. So I love that. I'm definitely going to get your book, because like Eric and I were talking about this. We were like, we need to get this. This seems like a good book to have.
Thank you. I think you'll like it.
Absolutely. So, James, we want to thank you for coming on and giving us this time. Thank you for your service to this country. It's awesome. As Chief of Staff and serving for what is my favorite president. Everybody always spouts off who their favorite president is online, and I always say it's Reagan, and I don't care. And then I always get the other people on the other side of the house who are like, "What about Obama?" And I'm like, I was saying my opinion, not yours. I was saying my favorite president. I know my parents had their favorite president. Strangely enough, it's the one thing my parents and I absolutely always have agreed on. My mom is a huge fan. She's actually was excited to listen to this interview just because Reagan was so big, and growing up in Orlando was a big thing too. I remember when the president came and visited our school, and it was probably during election time, because they generally don't go visit schools without, needing to shake hands and get good TV spots. We all know that. But it was awesome to meet him. And actually then we had Vice President Bush come by a couple weeks later. So I got to meet both, who ended up both being, one was already president and one became president. So it was fascinating for me. So it's a big thing. And why we were talking, actually, we had a couple folks talk about the Challenger. You brought up the Challenger, which I can't believe I forgot. I actually watched that as a kid in Florida, watched that happen before my own two eyes. talked about Reagan's Challenger speech, which is amazing.
Yeah, that is ranked, not in record, but that is ranked. So as a part of this book, I did research into the great speeches throughout history, and that's in the top 5. I think it's interesting because he has this fabulous quote. We saw these astronauts today slip the surly bands of Earth to touch the face of God. I can't even say that without getting completely, goosebumps. I think that, and Reagan also, because he was an authentic person himself, he believed that. And this is so important as a speaker. You have to believe in what you're saying yourself, because your audience, you can't fake it with an audience. So he couldn't just spout that as a line in the speech. He actually believed in what he was saying. And when he said, God bless America, he really wanted God to bless America. And as a result, the audience felt that. It was in his heart, but he spoke through his voice.
Outstanding. Well, James, we want to thank you for coming on. And again, everybody go out, and we're going to provide in post, we'll add the link into our YouTube so you can grab it. We'll drop it into the feed so folks can go order your book. It's available on Amazon, so we can help that go. And we can find out more information about James and his amazing organization at impactspeakercoach.com. Go check them out, and growthstrategy.us. You can also tag them and check them out on Instagram. That's where I was, so that's where I was checking you out, James. So I want to thank you so much. It's been an honor to have you on the show today. Love to have you back on soon. I love talking anything politics with you, because to me, you become that resident expert because you worked with still. I'm a geek for a president. I made fun of people who do it for another president, but I geek for this president, so it's my thing. So thanks, James, so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. Right back at you guys.
Thank you. That was amazing.
That was fun. Do you enjoy that? Did you live a childhood thing or anything?
I'm embarrassed. I remembered the Tripoli speech after the squids, the sailors were killed. Such a Marine. I refer to the Navy in such poor ways. I love you, Uber. I mean Navy. But I remember that speech so well growing up, the way that he looked at it, and I can't believe. I mean, I remember the Challenger. I watched the Space Shuttle Challenger as I was like 3rd grade, I think. I remember standing in a soccer field. I lived in Orlando, and so we could see the shuttle launches. I've been to about 10 of them. So to watch the space program and watch the shuttle and know instantly as a little 3rd grader that something went wrong, and remembering that, I mean, I have goosebumps talking about it because I'm like reliving that day like a lot of us relive 9/11. I mean, for me, the Challenger was the craziest thing that I'd ever witnessed. And then to have, the Oklahoma City bombing take place 10 years later. And then, of course, the first attack on the World Trade Center in 93. I remember that. And then you had the Discovery breakup. But that was after. Then you had 9/11. It's just like, now there's like a whole bunch of stuff. And I'm like, remember, there wasn't a whole bunch of stuff. It was just really easy. I mean, and we even left out Lebanon. There was the attack, which as a Marine is weird for me not to mention. But there was the Beirut bombing, which killed 286 United States Marines. And that was also on Reagan's watch. I mean, just an amazing president, and just having James here to talk about what they went through. I mean, because if you think about what Reagan went through, we haven't had a president have to go through that. War, an assassination attempt. I mean,
I know, it's so much, honestly. And I don't know, I think it's easy to forget a lot of the crazy things that happen in different presidencies. We learn history, but it's crazy to think this is the president that kind of guided us and leaded us through that time, which is just, it's insane. So, and also I didn't know did you grow up in Florida? I'm from Florida. Yeah. I'm like a fellow Floridian.
Yeah,
crazy.
I learned that you have a stalker. It's called my mother. She's like, I just love Pavlina. She's just amazing. She's so talented. She's from Florida. I'm like, yes, Mom. Thanks, Mom. I know who my co-host is. Thanks.
Well, Hey.
Hey, yep. Oh, see, look, she's right there. By the way, she's chiming in. She's loved my mom to death. She's a fan of yours, so
That's so sweet. I love it. That's so sweet.
You get the mom stamp of approval for you're her favorite person on Fridays. When I said we're not doing a show last Thursday, I said we're taking time off for the holiday to respect and honor the fallen. And she's like, but I don't get to see Pavlina. I'm like,
oh, I am honored. Oh my gosh, that is so sweet. Thank you.
yeah. So it was.
That.
I'm looking at some of the comments in here. We have Patrick O'Donnell saying Iran Contra. I mean, it's true. The Reagan administration had so much in 8 years. And I think the Trump administration is trying to trump it in 2020 alone with the embassy, the impeachment, COVID, the riots. I mean,
like, I feel like there's just so much that just dealing with everything that's going on in this country, and then even, across the water, it's just like, I don't,
yeah.
I'm glad it's him and not me.
Yeah. I mean, I feel for anybody in that job. I think Joe Rogan put it best when he was doing his stand-up. I loved his stand-up because he said, being president used to be cool because you were in charge of like 300 people before. Now there's billions of us, and you have to deal with all these opinions, and now everybody's different, and it's not as simple as it was even 10 years ago, right? I mean, it used to not be an issue even to use the restroom, right? You could figure that one out. It was pretty simple. And now even that's confusing. And then what you call people, that can get confusing, especially once you hit your 40s and you've kind of grown up in the 80s. You're kind of like, I get it. Like, I'm very open-minded and cool with just about anything and everything. And then people are like, well, I don't go by that one. I go by some other, like, alien Zenu freaking term. And I'm like, bro, I didn't mean to offend you. Oh, crap, I just called you a bro. You're not a bro. But dude, can't even call people dude anymore because that's...
Oh, I know. I call dude everyone. I call everyone dude, so that's like a struggle. But it's a hard, sensitive time to be living in. You know what I mean? It's just, I just sort of go with it. I'm just kind of like, okay, well, you're my BFF, regardless. So sorry, bye.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a hard place to be, especially when everyone has an opinion. It's a very sensitive time, and you can get raged out on social media in like 2 seconds. It's scary. It's just like
opinions are everywhere.
Yeah.
I want to jump into it. We're waiting for Joy to join us. So I want to jump into something because, we both probably we've seen racism in probably different ways. Obviously, I've been around a lot longer than you have, and I've seen a lot of it. Growing up in Orlando, I grew up right outside of a city called Eatonville, Florida, which is one of the oldest Black cities in America. So I was inept with that amazing, culture of how they were, in Orlando long before my people moved from New York. I know, shocking. New Yorkers in Florida. I know. Stop if you've heard that one before.
Right.
We just stopped in Central Florida. I know we didn't end up down in like Boca Raton with everybody else, but
right.
Don't ask why. That's my mom question. We'll ask her, Mom, why did we stop at Orlando? Everybody else went south. But anyways,
Universal. I like you. I like Orlando. It's fine.
Yeah, I'm a Winter Park Maitland kid, so that's where
I love it. Oh, I'm Daytona, but like.
Okay, I know Daytona quite well.
In Orlando. That's where I used to do.
Cocoa Beach, Ron John Surf Shop.
Absolutely.
Oh, see, you know. So, it's interesting when we talk about racism. I said this earlier today on social media, that racism to me is the biggest issue in our country faces year after year. And it's the one issue that's never been fixed. Mm-hmm. No matter what, it's always going to be that, and I call it a scab because it's picked at constantly. And there's no right way to be on it, and there's no way to be comfortable to speak about it. And I know for years I was uncomfortable speaking out to just give my opinion on the matter, but then I reached my 40s and stopped caring and decided that I was going to say what I wanted to say and speak up, because I think the problem is not enough people speak up on the problems that we have in our country. And sometimes it is embarrassing to be an adult white male in America when you look at people who treat other people like absolute crap because of the color of their skin. And being in the Marine Corps, we just had this conversation on the show. There's kind of a point here, and then we can kind of go back and forth. Absolutely. I was on a show with our good friends from the Marine Rapper and Space Force guys, which, by the way, Space Force just dropped today. Go check it out. Space Force, their new album dropped today. No shameless plug, but I love those boys, so I'm giving them a plug. But we were talking about how when they do the census or they give a viewpoint of counting veterans, veterans are not broke down by our creed, color, or sex. It's veteran. There's 24 million of us, and we're not known as there's this guy and this guy or this guy and this gal. We're not broken down that way. And I just find it interesting that, like, for us, we kid around, but we don't really see color. Like, somebody called us out because we were talking about TMR, and in the Marine Corps, we call our brother Marines. We call them dark green Marines is our thing. It's what it's just how we do it in the Marine Corps, right? But we're like, hey, we all bleed. We all bleed blood, the same color blood. We don't really care. You're a Marine in our eyes, right? And that's how we kind of look at vets and any other branch. I know the Army feels the same way about soldiers and all that good stuff. So it's funny to be looking at from my eyes and seeing racism still alive and well, like Brunswick, Georgia. Hey, there's a guy jogging. We should hop in our truck, film it, and go shoot him. I mean, this is the shit we're dealing with in 2020. So I don't know if you have any feedback on that. I do see Joy is here, and I don't want her to sit in the green room any longer because she just looks like she has a lot to say.
I know. Yes, and we should definitely get to Joy because I'm excited to talk to her. But really quick, I just feel like it's one of those things, and I know we kind of talked about this last time, it's a societal thing, and I think after a while, it'll just sort of like leave the generations. I think millennials and Gen Zs, they are clearly so against it that they're obviously going to raise their kids to not be racist and stuff. And I think it just almost has to be weighted out in a way just because of people it's ingrained in them from a really early age, I think. And I think it's really hard for them to change their mindsets. I don't know. I grew up, you treat everyone the same, you love everybody, and you're friends with everyone. Barney, I don't know. Didn't Barney tell us that? Like, that just made sense to me. Like, it just
PBS worked for Pavlina.
I love PBS. I was all about it, and like it blows my mind that this is still an issue. Like, I posted on my Instagram story recently, like it was a magazine cover, and it said something about is this the 1968, and it crossed it out and then said 2015, and then said no, 2020, and it's just like, this is still a problem, and I feel like it just has to get weeded out or something. I don't know. It's a hard thing to tackle for sure, but we should definitely get to Joy.
Yeah, we're going to get to her in 1 second. I just want to let everybody know we are going to go a little long today, just so you know, just technical difficulties and so much breaking news. So we're going to be going a little long today, so we ask you to stick around for a little bit longer. Can't wait to have Joy on. So, and Vet Pivot, by the way, wants to let you know that you just dropped a Barney reference on the show. So good job. That's strong. That's our first Barney reference. I am strong. Maybe we can see if Joy can drop a Barney reference for today. And
I love you. You love me. Isn't that what it is? I don't know why this is still in my head. Like, that says a lot.
You're going to be singing it all weekend now. I'm tagging you. I'm going to send you some Barney memes all weekend now. Now you've done it.
Oh, then it will get stuck in my head.
You're welcome. Yeah, that's because I had that song we started the show with when we thought we were doing a TikTok on our show. I'm savage. Yeah, no.
Isn't that like the thing?
No.
Like,
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't. The dancing is the one thing I don't like about TikTok. I like everything else. I think it's great. I think it's funny. I think it's
I'm
cool,
uncoordinated.
But the dancing, I just can't get on board with.
All right. So let's get to Miss Joy. Is she ready? We'll make her be ready. So let's bring on Miss Joy Villa. I'm excited for this.
Hi guys, I'm ready. What's going on?
Hey, it's Joy! Yay! And I don't know why I did that. It just felt right to do it. Yay! How are you?
I love it, Eric. I love it. A little fan.
Hey. Jazz hands.
Jazz hands. Always jazz hands. That's incredible.
So, Joy, I'm glad we have you here today. I don't know if you've heard, but the police officer involved in the murder in Minneapolis was charged with murder about 20 minutes ago. Yeah.
I did not know that.
He was formally charged. He was arrested and charged with that. It's third-degree murder and manslaughter.
Good.
Is that my typing? Can you hear my
Excellent.
typing?
That's exactly what should have happened, because that video is so heartbreaking. And I tell you, when I saw it, I was like, I have to say something. I have to chime in. And NME, which is a big music, online music magazine, mentioned Ice Cube's comments. They mentioned Janelle Monáe's comments, and they mentioned my comments, which is a big deal because I'm the only conservative on that list. And I just started a tweet storm, and I was just like, this is unfair. This is disgusting. This is absolute murder, and this police officer has to be charged, and justice has to happen. And it's not often that we have actual social justice campaigns that are actually in reality helping and working. I come from the past of being a feminist liberal who was a hashtag SJW, and all those, wear orange to combat gun violence and all this BS never does anything. But this actually did something because it put pressure on that police force to weed out the bad cops. Now, I don't think just he should be charged. I think all the cops who were there should also be charged for negligence as well. I know they were all fired.
Oh,
but he should have definitely been charged.
Oh, for sure. I agree with you so much. We had a retired New York PD detective on, and that's exactly what he said. He's like, every one of those officers is responsible because not one of them attempted to stop at all. So it's alarming that they haven't been charged yet, and only one's been done. So let me ask you this, because it's interesting. You bring up Ice Cube, and obviously he's not conservative, because he came out with a completely different viewpoint than yours, which he came out with almost a threat of violence towards police officers, kind of looping them all into one, not four bad ones. And I think Mike the Cop, who's a social media icon, especially in the law enforcement world, he talked about, good cops hate bad cops. This isn't a 2-for-1 thing. This isn't like you just get to pick. It's not all cops. You can't loop all the bad cops into stuff. So, what's your thoughts on that? You're included with Ice Cube, but even he stayed away from TV yesterday because of it.
Well, I think, first of all, I come from a family military background, as you know, Eric, so I respect you being a Marine. My aunt was a captain in the Marines. My dad was military police, so in the Army. And I have friends in the Air Force. I almost joined the Navy at 18, or the Marines, And I see this as evil has no color and evil has no uniform. You can be an evil person and you can be a nurse, you can be a mother, a father, and you can be a police officer. You can be any one of those things. It doesn't have a job, it doesn't have a post, it doesn't have a look. Evil can be lurking anywhere, but especially when there are positions of power, it can be something where people get conflated. They conflate that power, and they maybe never had power in their lives, so they use it to hurt people. They use it just like Chauvin did when he murdered, George, and he did it ruthlessly, and he did it with that power. But bad cops are bad cops, and just like you said, good cops hate bad cops. Now, what unfortunately Ice Cube is doing is using a generality and being like, F the police. Like, this ain't the 80s. They're not out there. Like, honestly, I detest and hate police brutality. It absolutely exists. As a Black woman, I would be lying to myself if I said that didn't exist. But we cannot talk about police brutality without talking about the good cops who fight that every day and are there serving and protecting, are actually civil servants who signed up for the job because they want to help us and our families, regardless of color. So it's just, you can't put a blanket statement. That's actually very dangerous, because now we see the riots in Minneapolis, which are horrendous, and they're not getting the message across. Now, I do think that the riots happen to be also from this quarantine, this, sequestering in our homes. It was bound to happen. This is tyranny already, and now all of a sudden people are given a reason and they're going nuts.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. I think it's escalated because you have I've been listening to the folks that are there. I've been listening to the police scanner, and it's not just protesters. It's our friends Antifa are also there, which are the rebel rousers, as they cause all the chaos. They've been around, the entire presidency for President Trump. They've been nothing but the biggest problem in the world. So to me, I agree with you on that. It doesn't excuse, I don't understand Ice Cube living in the 80s with, I get you're part of NWA and F the police and all that good stuff, but we don't need that. This is a different time. 2020 is different. None of us we're not racist idiots. We don't look at all law enforcement that way. We're all pretty smart. We can educate ourselves. We have these little devices where we have friends, and we don't, the worst thing I'm seeing now is, again, everybody's telling me how many friends they have in diversity. It's like a checklist for Caucasians right now. It's like, hey, I got 3 Black friends, 2 Chinese, 1 Korean, and one person from the Middle East.
And a couple happies.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm like, we're not doing roll call. Why do you need to tell us? You should just be, you're either racist or you're not. There's not like a divide between how many friends you have. It's, it's just a lot of people who are discussing some weird topics. But, it brings us to
scared, I think people are scared, Eric. If you're white these days and you don't proclaim, oh, I have friends of different races, you can be seen as racist, which is, this term is thrown out there far more than is actually true. Like, whether that cop was a racist or not, it doesn't matter. I don't care about his ideology, if he was prejudiced or racist. But what matters is the actions he took to murder someone. It's not about if someone, listen, I can live next to a racist as long as they don't try to hurt me. As long as they don't, I don't care. You can be racist. It has nothing to do with me. I'm going to live my best life. But if you use your racism to then commit violence, whatever color you are, left or right, I'm not talking about color here, but if you use that, then we have a problem. But it's not about thoughts. I don't care if someone hates my color, hates my gender. You go on with your bad self, because I'm going to go on with my bad self. But it's when actions come in, and that's the problem with this social media cancel culture, is that people are conflating racism or prejudice with actions. And we have to separate those things, because in the court of law, harmful racism is those burning crosses, lynching people, murdering people. That's more than racist. That's evil. That's murderous. But there are people out there who are going to have racist, prejudiced thoughts, and you can't change that.
No.
As long as they don't do anything about it, I don't care.
So what would you say? And I live up here in beautiful Portland, Oregon, right? Home of Antifa and everything that seems to be wacky and weird. And as you know, about a year ago, Andy Nogue was assaulted here during the week before the Pride Parade here in Oregon by Antifa. Completely, the tar beat out of him, and it was looked the other way. The media almost justified it because he was conservative. He's a conservative, Asian gay journalist, and that seemed to be okay. I mean, do you think the media is responsible for a lot of this hate culture where people are defined, but some sorts of hate crimes are okay, where they kind of put everybody, if somebody says they support Trump and you're Caucasian and you're male, you're automatically a white supremacist, which isn't true. It's kind of like saying automatically you served in the military, you're automatically Republican. It's not true. I have friends that are independents, libertarians. I mean, and I served with them and I don't judge them any different. Trust me, one of my closest friends who will come after me on social media anytime he wants, we did boot camp, training in the fleet together, and trust me, he's a Democrat, long and true, but we still get along. Do you think the media is responsible for it? Because you yourself have come under these attacks. I've seen it. I mean, you were attacked on the White House lawn, last year for your actions.
Exactly.
I mean,
that's right. Oh yeah, I 100% agree, Eric, that the media is to blame for a lot of this stuff. Now there's violence that happens, and then the media, well, if it bleeds, it leads. They'll go after it. They'll get hot on that story. Let's go. Let's get all our people out there. Like we see that the media is an embarrassment because they're wearing masks in front of the camera, yet the cameraman, the sound guy, the PA on set, which is production assistant, right? They don't have masks. Yet they're out there with a mask shaming people, saying, oh, there's no masks going on in Florida and whatnot. And I mean, this is happening all over the place. And the media is a lot of do what I say, not as I do, right? Because they will tell you what to do. Meanwhile, they don't do it themselves. And the fact that the light is now on the media with such intense pressure because of President Trump, with the fake news, calling them out, he called them fake news. Suddenly that's everywhere. Suddenly we have Google trying to get involved. Suddenly we have Facebook trying to get involved. Don't get me started about censorship and dangerous misinformation. All it is saying is taking that fake news and saying, okay, this is actually hurting people. But instead of using it to help people and say, well, CNN can't be trusted because they lied on that story. They're lying every day. Big media is always lying. It's now being used for censorship to say, we, Trump supporters, are the racist, the misogynist, the this, the that, when we are not. And using it on us to say we're the haters, when we simply want our voice to be heard. I have friends of all different political affiliations. I never, ever would cut somebody out for voting Democrat or being Democrat or disagreeing with me or not liking Trump, or even being pro-choice when I'm strongly pro-life. I wouldn't cut someone out of my life because that's the antithesis of what I believe. I believe in respect, and all of us have a voice. And yet I faced so much hate, so much condemnation, not just from the media, from other people who are sheeple, who are believing the media and being brainwashed by it, calling, me all manner of racist names, all sorts of hate and death threats, rape threats. Because me as a woman of color has come out and said, hey, I support the president. I mean, it's happened constantly for the last 4 years. They just bash me. And the media will be like the so-called singer, right? The so-called, they called me conspiracy theorist when I, went to bat and said, wait, Alex Jones shouldn't be taken off of social media just because he says something that you don't agree with. So you cannot win in this day and age, unfortunately. So the whole thing is not to fight the media, but to laugh at the media, to see how stupid they are. Keep on smiling and keep on creating.
Joy, I completely agree with you. And I've been saying that kind of stuff from the beginning because mass media, they have been a problem for some time now. And it's frustrating to see because I've been in media for a very large part of my life. And to see it kind of be this biased and this divided and really trigger people because people believe what the media tells them.
Right.
And like, when they see that the media is saying a certain thing, they're going to get riled up and they're going to get mad and they're going to go act on it. And that's exactly what we're seeing with the George
They're
Floyd.
the great storytellers, but instead of telling stories that will help people, they are weaving the narrative that they want. And it's decidedly left-leaning. It's decidedly anti-women of color who are free-thinking like us.
Absolutely.
It's decidedly propaganda and paid for. It's bought and paid for by George Soros and many other people who have vested interests, the Clintons, all of them,
right.
Joe Biden, the Obamas, all of them have paid their dues and paid with money and other means to say, okay, fine, I will bow at the altar of the all-seeing God of media in order for me to get ahead. And they've all done that. So when we break the paradigm, when we shift it, when we break open the matrix, they hate us. They can't agree with us because we're exposing them, and they're going to fall just like Jenga blocks. We're pulling it out, and it's about to topple. It's wobbling because independent free media like this is going to take over because that's what the people want.
That's exactly it. And that's what I try to tell people all the time, and they just don't get it because they're being manipulated. And it's just like, how do you not see this? But it's frustrating.
Well, I talk a lot about this in my new book, actually. I have a book coming out soon.
Oh my gosh, tell me about it.
You guys know, it's going to be amazing. I haven't released it yet. I'm in the middle of writing it, but it will be out at the end of this year, before Christmas. Actually, probably you'll have a pre-order by September. Want to get it in before the election. It will be my story, a bit of memoir intertwined with my most frequently asked questions: how to deal with haters, how to deal with the press, how to be strong and conservative, how to deal with all the situations I face on a daily basis and have faced the last 4 years and have not stopped. And it's going to be something that's going to self-help. It's like a self-help guide, but it's going to be very funny and witty and humorous. And I hope you guys will check it out. You can just follow me at joyvilla.com, sign up for my newsletter, send me an email, and I'll put you on the pre-order list when it's available.
I love that. Okay, so people should definitely go check out your book. They should definitely check out your website. And just really quick on this whole George Floyd thing, I want to get your thoughts on how Trump is handling it, just because there's a lot going on right now. Eric and I were talking about this a little bit earlier in the show. This is like the first time in a hot minute that I've actually seen the country united in something. It's like, oh my gosh, we actually all agree that this was wrong and this was bad.
Right.
And Trump acted on it right away with, having the FBI go out and figure out what was going on and everything. But I would love to hear your thoughts on how he's dealing with it, just because there's a lot going on right now in the country with this.
I agree, Pavlina, that there is a lot going on. I mean, for this president to be cool, calm, and collected under this amount of pressure is woo. I was on a White House call just last week about the coronavirus and COVID-19. And he had stated that he wants to open up the country as soon as possible, but he's getting a lot of backlash from different places. And of course, it's up to the governors, individual mayors. I live in California, Los Angeles and California. So, I'm going to be trapped here until July. But I'll tell you that the way the president has handled not only the coronavirus pandemic, but also this race relations shows he has grown so much as a president, because before he sort of wanted to play it a little safer. He didn't want to take sides. Now he acts quickly and swiftly. And I can say that he's learned from sort of the public PR fallout. I can say this, I love this man very much, but I got to call it when I see it. There was a fallout. What happened with the Charlottesville, right? He didn't say something quick enough. He didn't act quick enough, and it became a huge media blowout. And that's the problem. When you're the president, you have to say something. He's damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. So him acting swiftly saying, yes, this is wrong. Yes, we're going to investigate. Yes, we're sending the FBI out to investigate this. And look at this. Before the story's even had a chance to really grow as big as it's about to, it's already handled. And that's because we have a president who cares and is swift to talk about it. They're handling it, saying, listen, let's stop rioting. This man is now charged. It's really amazing. He's handling it with elegance and aplomb, in my personal opinion.
I love that. And I agree with you. And you're right. He is, it's hard for him to win. So I think when he does act on something swiftly, that's really the best thing. I am curious to see, because obviously it's going to be Biden, it's going to be Trump. Your book is coming out right before the election. What are your thoughts on how he's going to be doing? Just because the country's gone through a lot this year. It's obviously an election year. There's a lot of things going on with that. Not just all the stuff he's dealing with, but it's also an election year. Big deal. So how do you think the country's going to react with Trump and, Biden?
I think that the country is going to vote for Trump. I have to believe that because Biden is shown to be out of his mind, a child sniffer. I mean, he's weird. He's perverse. He's shouldn't be running. No one should have let him run at this point because I think the man has Alzheimer's, which is very sad. But at worst, he's mentally incapable. At best, he's mentally incapable. At worst, he's a pedophile. It's very uncomfortable. So Joe Biden, he also just said, if you have to decide whether you're going to vote for me or Trump, you ain't black, which is such a racist, insane statement to say that it's blowing my mind that there's not riots in the streets against Joe Biden, because he is not the Democratic nominee that they were wishing for, obviously. And he promised to choose a woman as his running mate, which was a ridiculous statement because how many women have you got? So the country has already seen the Democratic nominee fall apart. I think that there's going to be a lot of independent swing voters this election who may not decide up until the last minute, but they will vote for Trump because he will bring the economy back online. He will bring people back up. Families will be flourishing again. We've got the stimulus check. He acted swiftly in that. We've got small business loans. He's acted swiftly in that. This was a devastating blow for any president, but much less the president who's gotten more hate and less credit for the good things than any other president in history. So I do believe that the American people will be able to judge the situation after the hysteria blows over. Of course, there'll be other hysteria. We had the impeachment scam, the Russian hoax, and now we've got the COVID-19, the president's killing people, which is obviously a farce and ridiculous. So I think people are going to be numb to it. They're going to be over it, and they're going to say, well, shoot, maybe it's time I actually look at what he's saying. That's what happened to me 4 years ago, is I got over the BS, and a good friend of mine said, why don't you actually check out what he's saying? And I do share my story of how I converted to conservatism from being a liberal, hard left-leaning feminist over to being pro-Trump. And couldn't be happier with being a Trumplican. I'm helping to open minds and hearts every day. Young people, millennials, women of color, women in general. I think it's a lot of voters are going to swing their vote over to voting for Trump, and that's going to be his saving grace.
Absolutely. Well, I agree with you. And I definitely think that this is, I don't know. I have a lot of friends that I live in New York City. And I think it's very obvious that a lot of younger voters they seem to just kind of go with whatever they're told, and they just sort of like Biden for that. But I kind of agree with you that I don't really trust Biden, and I don't think that just in the sense that he has a lot of gaffes that kind of make me concerned, and it's like that. I just don't know if he's ready, and I don't know how he ended up being the nominee, to be quite honest. And yeah, I just think it's crazy that this is kind of like what we're left with. But I agree with you, that's where we're going to end up. But I think Eric's having a little bit of a mic issue, so I think we're going to have to wrap on this. But can you tell us again where people can go for your website, get your book, and then I know you have a new song that came out, right? Freedom.
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
Freedom, fight for it. All about fighting censorship. That's my newest song with an artist called Flint Bedrock. He's a Zimbabwean artist out of London. Check it out on my YouTube channel. I also go live on YouTube every weekday, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard. So I'm live every weekday, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard, 12 p.m. Eastern. And that's at Joy Villa, Miss Joy Villa on YouTube. YouTube.com/Miss Joy Villa, as well as you can follow me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and joyvilla.com is easy to find me. All my music is downloadable, iTunes, Amazon, and we're hoping to get another Billboard hit with this one. So check it out. Freedom, fight for it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Joy. It has been wonderful.
Hey, I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Hi, Eric.
Woohoo!
Eric's back.
Ta-da!
So fun.
Talking
Yeah.
about the cut sniffer and in trouble. All of a sudden, yeah, the social media people, well, they bashed. I did what you called them. I was muted. Time to spit off. Yeah, that's the best. Child. I love that. Thanks, Joy. That was my favorite. My comment of the day. I love that child sniffer. I want to thank you for coming on. I'd like to have you on as we get frenzy elected, because I definitely think there's a lot of topic we could talk about. And you nail on the head talking about what Bob said last week. It did basically go how it got swept under the rug. I mean, he said that, and Charlemagne came out and spoke out, which was amazing. Charlemagne speaks out conservative stuff. But Biden is not the Democrats. And you and I talked here about this. Democrats had an opportunity to put some main folks that people could go, actually compete against the president. And I would actually go, this person has a chance with this person. And strangely enough, that didn't happen. They ended up with some old crusty white guy who sniffs kids and is just creepy. And it wasn't, Mayor Pete and, and everybody. I think the media did such a good job discrediting Mayor Pete. Shouldn't have. So what, he's from a city. I mean, does that mean he's a good guy? Or is that the DC, again, the master plan they did with him, who they wanted all along, and now saying it's going to be a little Warren? So the Democrats are hating to select Donald Trump by being so screwed up. They don't even go, because they're like, hey, we're going to have diversity, and we're all about this, and we have a man, and have women of color, and oh shit, we're going to end up with an old kitty sniffer and this creepy woman who lied that she was Native American. It's not great. Diversity, you win. Good job. It's like, they're just handing the election away. But anyways, I could rant on this topic for days. I want to thank you for joining us. I did drop your latest article that has you and Ice Cube and a few others mentioned, and your amazing Instagram video talking about quarantine. I dropped those in there. Everybody can go check those out. And I'll be first in line to buy your book. So I can't wait for your book to come out. So I want to thank you for joining us. Have yourself a good weekend and be safe.
Thank you so much. Bye, you guys. Bye, Pat.
Bye.
Bye, Eric. Always good to see you, my friend. Bye.
Bye, my friend. Be
Talk
safe.
2020, baby.
And that's Friday.
That's Friday. That's how it goes.
And that's Friday.
I love
think
it.
that's the most breaking news we've ever had on our show go at once. I'm like, okay, we're leading off with he's been arrested. He's been charged with murder. Holy crap.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in the world right now, Eric. It's just it's too much to keep up with, but I'm glad we're here and we're able to share it with the people.
You know what I'm looking forward to, and why we've been on air following the story. NASA is attempting the launch tomorrow, despite a tropical storm heading. We didn't even talk about the tropical storm heading towards Florida, which just adds to the. I love people walking by your camera. That's awesome. Like, hey, we see you. Hi.
It's okay.
I'm just a smartass. It's okay. I do think it's funny that we didn't even talk the tropical storm. It's like everything's being fed us when we talk this. So I'm looking for SpaceX tomorrow at 12:22. That should be, hopefully we get that. We made it to 16 minutes away, so that was pretty close. But I want to thank you for coming on and co-hosting again, my dear. It's awesome to have you on the show. So I'll see you next Friday. Same bad time, same bad channel.
Much.
So awesome. So you have yourself a good weekend.
I'm getting kicked out. Okay. Thank you, Eric. I appreciate it.
Bye. Oh, when you use videos in your own house, nobody got in your office. When it's your status on that. So it's a great week. I thank you guys for tuning in day in and day out and watching this. A reminder, I didn't get all this show. I'll say it now. Make sure you smash that subscribe button. We're trying to hit 100, and that depends on you, the listener, to help us get there. If you're watching this on YouTube, hey, hit that button that's in the corner. That subliminal hint that's coming across the video over and over again, telling you should subscribe. I don't put those in there because I don't have anything better to do. I put those in there because I want you to subscribe, because I want you to keep listening and watching and checking out our segments. As a reminder, starting Monday, this coming Monday, June 1st, that's my English impression for you. Starting on June 1st, we will be on at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern. We are your lunchtime, folks. So come check out. We promise to give you all the news, all the lifestyle, all the veteran, all the hiring news you could get. We don't need to drink during our lunch hour. We just bring you the straight dope with the guests. And we continue that. And we're not going to give you slanted news like our friends at the net. We're going to give it to you straight from just a normal average Joe and some amazing co-hosts. So as you see, we'll keep bringing you the great guests. You keep showing up and watching, and we definitely appreciate you for doing that. So on behalf of our entire team here at To The Point, which includes myself and our amazing executive producer, Butch Seltzer, our co-hosts, our wonderful co-hosts, Jordan Gelber and Pavlina Asta, who join us on Wednesdays and Fridays. And, of course, the man who pushes the ones and twos, the man in the booth, producer Chris. We want to thank you all for tuning in. Thank you to everybody who made comments today. We appreciate you. And have yourself a great weekend. What the hell's a weekend? Or a weekend. You should have a good weekend. Don't have a good weekend. Whatever the hell I just said. Have yourself a good weekend. As always, I'm Eric Mitchell. Be safe, be smart, be strong, and God bless America.